Hey everyone, I'm Ashleigh Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. So, guess what? If you were waiting, like I have been waiting for years, like years, for the Courtney Clenney trial, you're going to keep waiting. There isn't going to be one. So, unless she pulls a Koberger, right? She got a deal. And I'll be honest with you, I wanted to see this girl in court. I wanted to hear her story under oath. I was hoping she'd take the stand. I wanted to hear what the witnesses said. I wanted to hear what the police officers said about what the hell happened in her high-rise apartment. And we're not going to get that. And let me tell you, she's getting a sweetheart deal. Sweetheart. How much of a sweetheart deal? Well, you know what? Don't trust me. You could trust the former Palm Beach DA because he's coming up in a hot minute to give us his take on a deal like that. Because honestly, I kind of need to get off the ledge and I need to hear somebody who's in the business of actually cutting deals. And I get it. Deals are important. Otherwise, we would never, ever, see the light of day. Courtrooms would be so packed and so lined up, we'd never even get halfway to justice for most of our cases. So I get it. You have to have deals. You got to have plea bargains. I'd like to know how the sausage is made on this one. And I think Dave Ehrenberg is going to be able to tell us. He's coming up in a hot minute. But like I said, after 4 years behind bars, awaiting trial for second-degree murder, 30-year-old Courtney Clenney was facing the real possibility of spending every last one of her stinking days behind bars for killing her boyfriend and then telling us all, it's his fault, right? So for all those years that she was locked up and didn't want to be, she wanted to have bail. I get it. I would want bail too. She was trying to have us all convinced that her boyfriend was the one to blame for his own death and that she was innocent, pleaded innocent. And suddenly, about face. Courtney Clenney, former Instagram influencer, OnlyFans model, has secured herself the plea deal of a lifetime. You might know her as Courtney Taylor online. Courtney Clenney is in the legal documents because it's her legal name. Courtney Taylor is her hottie name, right? For the Instas and the TikToks and all the rests. And she, back in 2020, began dating a guy named Christian Toby Obamseli. And before long, they were living in a Miami luxury high-rise overlooking the beautiful Biscayne Bay. If you've ever seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Google it. It's lovely. Yeah, and it's expensive. Ooh. And she was bankrolling what I think we could all agree was a super enviable lifestyle, right? She was making a fortune. An effing fortune online, showing her, business. But the view from inside the apartment was considerably less picturesque. Biscayne Bay, hot, gorgeous. Inside the apartment, hot mess. Courtney and Christian, things were not good. Their relationship was super volatile. It was very dysfunctional, and it started getting violent. Like really violent, more and more, because the neighbors and the building employees were hearing it. They were actually reporting it, saying that there were these arguments all the time, repeated disturbances, they were calling them in. And there was video that captured some of it. Yeah, an elevator, you've probably seen it, inside the apartment building, showed Courtney hitting Christian. Not the other way around, not Christian hitting Courtney, Courtney beating the shit out of him in the elevator. And then there was another video that was recorded during a trip to Aspen and shows her repeatedly slapping him. There were also some pretty disturbing audio recordings, ugly text messages, other video evidence that Christian himself recorded during some of the more explosive of their blowouts. Take a listen to this.
Yes, thank you. Coming from Georgia, thank you.
I would get off of me! You literally talked to her without telling me!
Courtney, I was on a bike ride and she passed me and I said, hi, you and Courtney are having a live chat. My bad, I forgot to tell you that. That doesn't make you to act and call me a
And then came April 3rd, 2022. That was it. That's what gets us to right now, this moment. Me telling you about Courtney Clenney, Taylor Clenney. She stabbed 27-year-old Christian Obumseli inside that beautiful Miami apartment with the Biscayne Bay view. She claimed that Christian had pushed her to the floor and grabbed her by the throat and held her there before she broke free. And next, she said she picked up the kitchen knife and threw it at him from like 10 feet away. 10 feet away. That knife, well, she had to be real strong for that to have happened, right? This is a whole Brian Hooker story, trust me. Like, once you start thinking about the physics and the dynamics, it's all like, you do what now? The knife entered Christian's chest. It severed a major artery. It caused a wound approximately 3 inches deep, and that killed him. You think about going to the fair and doing the knife throws, and like, if you're 10 feet away, sometimes you'll stick it. Other times it'll be like, doink, doink. Yeah, 3 inches deep from 10 feet away. I mean, you got to be like an Alaskan to pull that off. The prosecutors were, not buying that. They argued that the depth and the downward trajectory of that knife wound did not match Courtney's story of, help me, boink, throwing it across the room, 10 feet away. Yeah, again, physics and science didn't match her story at all. And so she was arrested while in Hawaii. Lovely. That was August 10th. 2022. And that's when they laid that big fat charge on her head, 2nd-degree murder with a deadly weapon. Ouch. Right away, she pleaded not guilty. But they didn't give her bond. She was held in jail. Did not like that one bit. And the two sides spent the next 4 years, defense and prosecutors, prepping for the big showdown in a courtroom trial. 4 years. So you can imagine her 4 years kind of sucked, as they should. You know, it's hard to get bail when you're facing 2nd-degree murder, real hard when you're facing first. It's not impossible, but clearly the judge looked at that case and said, danger to the public, check. Flight risk, check. Those are kind of the two things you got to satisfy if you're going to get bail, and that was not satisfied in the least. So she was held 4 years. So she kind of served 4 years already, right? Courtney's defense attorneys have said from the get-go that she acted in self-defense after enduring physical and emotional abuse from Christian. Christian's family, though, they had a whole other side to this. They disputed all of that, the whole portrayal. They said that Christian was the victim of domestic violence, not the other way around, right? And that trial was expected to begin just a little later on this month. This is August 11th as I'm recording this. I was like all excited, waiting. Yeah. Instead, Courtney Clenney is not going to face a jury of her peers. She's just going to face peers inside a prison. Yeah. She's not going to face a jury for this crime because the prosecutors and her defense team reached a plea agreement. And on August the 10th, yesterday, 2026, exactly 4 years after Courtney was arrested, she formally withdrew that whole, I'm not guilty, Your Honor. That's my plea. And instead, I'm guilty, Your Honor. That's my plea. But she pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of manslaughter with a deadly weapon. Manslaughter. Manslaughter with a deadly weapon. That's very different from 2nd-degree murder with a deadly weapon. That whole 2nd-degree murder charge, that's gone. And under the agreement, she was sentenced to, wait for it, pour your tequila, 6 years. 6 years in a Florida state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. But, you know, probation, just can't drink and have a weapon, and you can be out there going to yoga on the OnlyFans. She also has to undergo a mental health evaluation and comply with any recommended treatment. Fine. Yeah, that sure beats life in prison, doesn't it? But here's the part that, well, if that already isn't shocking, this is shocking. Courtney is going to get credit for every single day that she's already been in jail, right? So that dates back to her arrest on August 10, 2022. exactly on the day. I always find that amazing. So she gets 4 years of credit on a 6-year sentence. Time served, right? She's already served. She could be potentially released about 2 more years behind bars. I know. I'm like, really? You can just plunge a knife into someone's chest and kill them? And you're out in 6? Her attorneys think that she may serve less than those 2 years that are coming up as well, that she might even be released in 18 to 20 months if she's a good girl. Yeah, good behavior. Courtney was originally facing second degree, right? That murder charge had the possibility of a lifetime behind bars. Parole, yeah, but life. Her own defense attorney said that if she'd been convicted at trial, Florida's sentencing guidelines called for a minimum of 21 years. Before anybody, hears your story about why you're a changed woman and you should get out. Not to say you get out, but you get the chance. So 21 years versus 18 months, maybe. Once she's released, Courtney's going to begin that 5-year probation term. And it's not just a formality, right? During the plea colloquy, Judge Andrea Ricker-Wolfson looked right at her and asked her directly, do you understand if you violate the terms and conditions of your probation, you are facing up to 30 years in state prison? And Courtney Clenney answered, yes, ma'am. Boy, I hope she really understands that her answer matters. Yeah, because 30 years, that's important. Just ask Mary Kay Letourneau. You can't, she's dead. But if she were alive, Mary Kay Letourneau got 7 years for having sex with, her 6th grade student. And she violated the terms of her probation, and she went back in and had to serve the whole thing. So it matters, and it happens. For their part, the prosecutors are saying that this agreement actually came together after extensive negotiations and also with the consultation and the approval of Christian Obamseli's family. That's the part I'm having a tough time understanding, because they were so angry. I mean, she's been blaming him for this all along. I'm not sure I could be this gracious. I mean, that is really remarkable. Clearly, Christian's parents have so much more grace than I do. They actually spoke outside of court to the press yesterday. That would have been, again, August the 10th. And they were with their attorney, and they had a lot to say. I want you to listen for yourself. Take a peek.
There is simply too much pain to put on paper. On April 4th, 2022, while I was at work, I received the call that no parent should ever have to receive. I was asked to give consent for my son's eyes to be donated. I had just talked to him the day before and had no knowledge that he had been killed. That was the darkest day of my life. And the darkness continued to unfold as I learned Christian had been killed by his girlfriend, Courtney Clenney, someone he had trusted and loved. Since April 2022, I have lived with fear, anxiety, sleepless nights, heartache, and more tears than I could ever count. 4 years later, there are still nights when I cannot sleep. There are moments when my mind goes back to the last moments of Christian's life. As his mother, those thoughts are very difficult for me to carry. There was a joy in my life and in our family's life before Christian died that has never completely returned. Christian, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that I had the privilege of being your mother. Those are the memories that no one can ever take from us and me. Nothing can erase the pain of the day that I buried my son. Nothing can describe what it feels like for a mother to stand at the grave of her child. There are also the things that will never happen for me now that he's gone. The birthdays, the holidays we will not celebrate with him, the conversations we will never have, the person he would have continued to become. Those losses continue much longer after today's court case ends. For more than 4 years, we've lived with the loss every day and waited for accountability. Today closes a legal chapter, but it certainly doesn't close our grief. No sentence, no plea can bring back my son to me. My only hope is to carry his memory forward and to continue healing as a family. As a family, we are very private people. We have endured this loss while much of Christian's life and death have been discussed publicly and inaccurately to support a narrative created by Courtney, the person who took my son's life. There are parts of our grief that belong only to us, and I choose to keep those things within our family. But I want this court to understand this much. The loss of Christian did not end on April 4th, 2022. We carry it with us every day.
I just still can't get past Courtney didn't apologize. Like, I feel like she should have had to stand up in court and apologize as part of the plea, you know? It pisses me off, just like in Kohberger, when they don't have to get up there and say why they did what they did and just spell it all out. And yeah, she didn't apologize. I would have added another 10 years for that, but that's me. This is still an astonishing resolution, right? To a case that prosecutors spent 4 years pursuing as a murder. Just imagine the amount of money and man hours, taxpayer dollars. Thank you, Florida. Thank you for paying for all that. It's a lot. It's a lot to process. And then think about this. Clenney's pretty damn young, right? She'll be 31 and a half or 32 when she has the chance to get out, if she doesn't fuck up. And so good luck to anyone else who goes on a date with her and makes her angry, because she did that. Because she's admitting it now. I did that. I did stab him in the chest. Yeah, so there are a lot of us out there who need to walk with trepidation, I believe. When you have somebody who is that volatile, that angry, that entitled, yeah, that's the kind of person who you don't cross them because they're used to getting their way. They're pissed when they don't. And, you know, relationships are always, she's only 30. So, yeah, she's got a big, long life ahead of her. Look out, Match.com or Tinder or wherever else you go. Look out. And I don't know if maybe she'll change her name. She's already done it once. Courtney Taylor. And here's what I guess. I think she's going to go right back to OnlyFans. I think that's probably her safest bet, because she's got one hell of a criminal record now. So those job applications are going to be tricky. They do search your background. But OnlyFans? I don't know. Get a prison striped, G-string. Make millions. Or will she? How did prison treat her? Because last time I saw her, she wasn't that same hottie. It didn't go well for her in prison. Jail. Because now it's officially kind of part of prison, because it's part of her prison sentence. Yeah. So let me just show you the difference between Courtney Taylor Clenney, the OnlyFans Instagram influencer, pulling in like boku dollars, versus Courtney Clenney, inmate of 4 years. Yeah. That's what happens when you go to jail. You don't get to do highlights in your hair anymore. You don't get makeup. It's hard to buy. Some places you can get it in the commissary. Other people do prison makeup, which is so fascinating. You get red Kool-Aid and you can make lipstick or stain. You get, it used to be magazines. You take water and a Q-tip or something, and you would put the water on the ink, and that would be eyeliner. But it is pretty hard to look good when you're locked up. Like I said, some jurisdictions allow makeup in the commissary and you can buy some things, but others allow nothing. And I remember Lori Vallow with a red lipstick. I was thinking, what the hell did she do? And she'd do toilet paper roll curls. She was a hairdresser, so she knew how to do her hair. But she would always come in with her hair done, her lipstick on when she was making her appearances. And I remember thinking, cherry Kool-Aid? I don't know. Maybe cranberry, I don't know. But she got something. And maybe there was lipstick in her commissary, I don't know. But Courtney, with this before and after, I don't know that you can do a before, after, and after. I will be amazed to see if she can pull in the same kind of income that she was pulling in her 20s. Because now you're 30. And it happens. You get old and you get jailed and you lose your moneymaker a little bit. So I just don't know if she's going to be able to live the life that she did before. But I can tell you this. In 2023, Courtney Clenney had a grievance that she filed with the prison. I will read you her words, and you might weigh in either way, because I actually feel some sympathy to what she's saying, only because women notoriously have been at a disadvantage when they go into a courtroom, because we normally appear, done up in makeup. It's kind of a social norm. And then you don't get that when you're in court. So people would judge you differently. And this is kind of where she's getting to, but I'm like, oh, cry me a river. And I'm going to read you her words exactly, but I want to credit Plunder. Plunder does amazing work, so make sure you check out Plunder and subscribe, because Plunder dug this up and it's awesome. So this is what the complaint says. Inmate states, many things should be available to us women in jail that are not, but I will highlight two important things. One is makeup through commissary that was needlessly discontinued before my entry. Access to makeup basics can make a difference in appearance/perception in court. This especially applies to those like me who unfortunately, well, fortunately for you, honey, you made millions, unfortunately face photo plus video media coverage during every court appearance. Cosmetology services should also be available, as they have been in the past. Men get plenty of extras at this facility, and cosmetology was an important one for women, according to many women here that I've spoken to, my own needs included. Second would be non-cardboard tampons through commissary. The cardboard tampons we get here are uncomfortable and hardly even functional. I don't know about that. Plenty of people use cardboard applicators. Like, I think the majority don't use plastic applicators. Maybe they, I don't know, maybe it's 50-50, but what the fuck, Courtney? Would you not like the toilet paper either? Is it too institutional for you? Then she asks, women's wash, like Summer's Eve products, would also be available. Women's pH levels are a delicate thing. No, that's a luxury. P.S. Everybody you speak to, in the OBGYN community will tell you, don't use those. They're bad for you. You're a natural cleaning machine. You're not supposed to use those feminine washes. They're actually not good. So whatever. What do you want, popsicles too? Anyway, these are her grievances, some of her grievances. I will say this about makeup, though. Bit of a point. I don't think it's cosmetology. I don't think you deserve to have a makeup artist. Like, that's hilarious. But I do think that it is fair. If you're going to put a suit on Luigi Mangione because you don't want him appearing like a felon in an orange jumpsuit, then what about the women? You put a suit on them. It's not the same as when they wear a suit to work or a suit out in public. There's usually hair and makeup involved. Not so for men. So I do agree. I've said that often, that I think there should be some access to women's makeup products, just so that they appear as they would in the norm, right? In the world, the norms of the world. Anyway, my point, I just don't think that this girl deserves anything special. So how do we get there? How do we even come to that on paper, that this is fair? How did the Obamcellis get there? I had to ask Dave Ehrenberg, because as the former Florida state attorney, right, for Palm Beach County, he's the guy that drew up the deals, right? This is what he did on a daily basis. Like I said, if you've ever seen a docket, there's way too much crime for court. We don't have enough court for all the crime. And so we have to cut these deals. And as a taxpayer, you should probably appreciate those deals, because it gives people a punishment and it gives us a break from having to pay for the prosecution and also for the imprisoning, because that's expensive too, and y'all are paying for it. So I asked Dave Ehrenberg, how do we get there normally, and how the hell did they get there on this one? Dave also has a YouTube show and a Substack that you should check out. It's really easy. It's Dave Ehrenberg, Aronberg. So again, his YouTube show, Dave Ehrenberg, and his Substack, Dave Ehrenberg. And I spoke with Dave about the Courtney Clenney deal just a few moments ago. Hey guys, you have heard me talk about this before. OneSkin. This is my everything. I use it every day, twice a day, sometimes more than twice a day. OneSkin works differently because its OS1 peptide was designed by longevity scientists to target the aging skin cells that are linked to the fine lines and the dullness and the other visible signs of aging. And with summer, yep, their limited edition bundles pair OneSkin skincare with SPF. Thank you. So you're helping address the visible effects of UV aging while also protecting your skin from brand new damage. OneSkin is backed by 4 different peer-reviewed clinical studies and more than 10,000 5-star reviews. So it's not just me. There's a bunch of us. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off with your code Banfield at oneskin.co/Banfield. That's oneskin.co and use the code Banfield. And please tell them when they ask that we sent you. Dave Ehrenberg, thank you so much for being on Drop Dead Serious.
Great to be back with you, Ashleigh. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're the perfect guest because so many of us see these plea deals and we lose our ever-loving minds because we think, wait, what? 6 years for plunging a dagger into the chest of a boyfriend and then saying all along for the last 4 it was his fault? Walk me through why this should make sense.
Well, the first question is, did the victim's family approve it? And the state attorney there, Kathy Fernandez-Rundle, who I know very well, she came out and said that the victim's family approved this deal. So that's the most important thing because these are grieving families and you don't want them to feel left out. So they said yes to this deal. And you have to believe that the reason why they didn't go to the mat on second-degree murder, which did look like she murdered this guy, especially in the past where she allegedly tried the same thing, and she's not a very sympathetic individual, an OnlyFans model. And you saw that elevator footage. Remember the elevator footage where she's beating on him?
Yeah.
Well, the defense lawyers were going to plan a battered spouse strategy. They were going to claim self-defense, and the state's got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt once it's raised. She was going to claim that she threw the knife across the room in fear, even though I don't know how that works. I think the experts will say no, but it'll be a battle of the experts. Prosecutors will say, no, a thrown knife can't penetrate the chest at that downward angle. And so, but when you have these battle of experts in front of the jury, that could be some reasonable doubt. And at least with manslaughter, you guarantee a violent felony conviction, and that is some responsibility that she's going to have to acknowledge. And a profit ban, that's another thing. She's not going to be able to profit off of this killing, this trial. So, going to trial carried some risk. And I think the prosecutors, with the assent of the victim's family, said this is the best result.
Well, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the Obosellis, and I can't because I can't imagine their grief and the horror of losing their sweet boy, and then suddenly he's being made out to be the bad guy. I always get so angry when the victims are vilified, and that's what she did. And I almost feel like that should be part of the metric that you sullied him for 4 years, Courtney Clenney. You have to serve some of those years, not just 2 more. So how do you think they got to 6 years?
I don't know how they negotiated 6 years, but she's going to get credit for the time served. She's been in jail for 4 years already,
Yeah.
or 4. And there's an 85% rule, so she'll get credit for the 4 years, and then they'll serve 85% of the remaining time. So she'll be out pretty soon. That's a shame,
Right?
That's a shame. I mean, I have no sympathy for her, but my fear would have been that she goes out after if she gets a not guilty verdict, or if she gets a lesser crime and then gets out anyways, and then tries to be a celebrity again. One thing that is good about this deal is that she's not going to walk out of prison in a couple years and turn this into a lucrative true crime media circuit. She's not able to do that under Florida law, but she'll still, I'm sure, because she's going to be out in fewer than 2 years, go back to OnlyFans, and she'll probably have a lot more followers, a lot more revenue than she had before, which is really just doubles a tragedy in my mind.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because the profit clause, I want to know how it's policed, because if she comes out and goes on Instagram or TikTok or OnlyFans wearing a bikini and starts talking about how hard jail was, does that violate the profit clause?
Oh, that is a good question. That's why you get paid the big bucks. This is like the Son of Sam law that they have. It prevents a convicted criminal from monetizing their notoriety, from selling their story to media outlets to profit from interviews or books or documentaries. So if she goes back to OnlyFans and makes money, I don't think that's covered by it. I think that if she goes back to what she's best at, which is being a OnlyFans model, I don't think that's covered by this clause. Now, if she does a book, a tell-all book or anything like that, no, can't take it, can't get it. So as far as how it's enforced, it's going to be written directly into the conditions of her 5-year probation. So she's got the 6-year sentence and then the 5 years probation after that, and it's going to be written right in. And the probation officers that have the legal authority to monitor income streams, and they can see financial disclosures. And so that's an easy way for them to send her right back to jail if she violates the terms of her probation. Now, beyond that, you have the law in place, and monitoring will be tougher, but I think the families, the victims' families will be watching, just like OJ's victims' families were watching when he tried to monetize it.
Yeah, and so that's my curiosity is like, because I want her to screw up and I want her to go back in. That's just how I feel. I'm very vindictive about this. I feel like she's getting a sweetheart deal, way too sweet. Getting out in, 18 months or so just makes my skin crawl. So she's the kind of person who's so entitled that I feel like she'll slip into poor me. And I just wonder, at what point does she cross the line? Let's say she's doing her OnlyFans in her bikini. She's allowed to do that. But she starts talking. At what point in the talking is there a hard, fast violation? Any mention of anything that has to do with her last 4 years?
I think you can talk about it. See, this is like a law school question. At what point does it cross the line to monetizing it, make money off your... I think that if you are charging for an interview, that's it. If you are doing an OnlyFans shoot and it comes up in an ancillary way, I think that would be okay. I think if you do some sort of in-depth interview, some sort of exclusive, or if it's just getting paid for the words you say. For OnlyFans, she's not getting paid for things she says. It's what she does and looks like. And she could say things to people. Well, it's just true. She can say things to people.
She could be doing one of these, and for those who are just listening, I'm doing the stripper move with my boobs. She could be doing that while at the same time talking about prison was so hard and I blah, blah, blah. And she could make a case that her income from that particular episode or that stream was because of her boob movements, not because of what she was saying.
That is so... I never thought when I got a lot of it, that would be the key question. Is it the boob movements or is it her words?
Oh, welcome to Drop Dead Serious.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, she can't make money directly or indirectly from telling her side of the story. So I think that anything she says beyond just, this reminds me when I was in prison, I think she'd get away with that. If it's, when my relationship was so toxic that I had to do this and no.
Violation.
Yeah.
No matter whether the boob thing is going on at the same time. Because I would say 50% of her new followers will be there for the story, and the other 50% who stuck with her are there for the boobs. But, I think it's an interesting sort of study in where's your First Amendment right end to talk about your feelings.
Exactly. Well, that's the problem with some of these Son of Sam laws. They've been challenged in court, and so they're limited. But Florida has one. It's not an outright blanket speech ban, because that would violate the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. You can't stop a convicted felon from speaking about what happened behind bars altogether. You can't do that. But if you get financial gain from it, that's it. And then what is financial gain? That's where a judge will have to make the determination whether she is selling access to her story or selling access to her boobs.
So you know what I could see? Well, I'm trying to do the mental gymnastics here, but if she did a free episode or a free stream where there was no advertising, just to gin up the interest and the followers, and that then is fruit from a poisonous tree, basically, right? She used a free service to tell everybody her story and her whatever bullshit she wants to spew, and then after, she's paid big bucks because she got all the followers.
Yeah, I think if you go on a site with no ads, no tips, no subscriptions, no affiliate links that you link to, just tell your side of the story, I think that would be allowed. First Amendment rights. Does it have the extra benefit of now people are going to find her on OnlyFans? perhaps. But if she references her OnlyFans, that's where she'll get in trouble. So
because it's marketing?
Yeah. This is something that the courts would have to figure out. Now,
They'd have to litigate this.
What is that?
They'd have to litigate this. If there was an action brought against her, they'd have to, I could see this being pretty robust because it's sort of a new-ish sort of thing. Yeah,
well, it'd be tougher in her first 5 years out because when you're on probation, you have the watchful eye of the probation officer, and they're quick to say, after she's off probation, it'll be easy for her to try to cross the line or go into the gray area. But right now, people are being watching her right away. And, the families are not going to put up with any BS. They're going to, and people will tell them. It'll be internet vigilantes.
Yep.
Who go on her OnlyFans site, just like they go into Playboy to read the articles, right?
Exactly. I will do that, though. I will watch for that, and I will highlight it. And if the Obamsellis don't see it, I will call them.
Good, because I can't do it from my computer because my wife will call me out for it. She will.
I don't have HR here.
Right? Sorry, dear. I'm doing research for Ashleigh Banfield and Justice.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about it because I'm still super fascinated by this, but there's so many other areas of this plea bargain I want to talk about with you because the sausage making is so intriguing. I looked at this case from the outside before I even got my fingers on any discovery. I didn't know half of what the prosecutors knew, and I kind of thought it was a slam dunk. And so I always wonder, like in Idaho, it looked like a slam dunk. In this case, it looked like a slam dunk. And when I hear the word plea at all, I think, no, not this one. Why is it that some that look so certain end up in plea deals?
Because what the internet tells you is different than what prosecutors have access to. You're only as good as your witnesses and their memories, and you don't have access necessarily to the depositions that are out there. You can see holes in the stories. I had a case that I thought was a slam dunk, but then it aged. It was a cold case, the clown killer case. Remember that one, Ashley? And after a certain time, the delays benefit the defendant. Here, she's been in jail 4 years. Delays benefit the defendant. Witnesses die, memories fade, evidence spoils.
Goes missing.
It goes missing. Mm-hmm. The passions of a community cool. And so I think prosecutors, they just say, all right, it's a cost benefit now. It's a risk benefit, really. It's because they don't have to pay for costs. It's just risk. What is the risk of this person going free? And that would be the worst case scenario. And maybe we should just ensure that justice is done. And then, of course, it's up to the victims' families. Where I had the bigger question is not in this case, although I do think that she could have been found guilty of murder here. But my bigger thing is in Idaho, where they had Brian Koberger dead to rights. And not only did they let him escape the death penalty, but they let him go to trial or at least take the plea deal without explaining his motive, right?
No
at least tell
allocution. Us. Where was the allocution? Same in this case. I want them to get up there and then deliver to us, the flock, what the fuck they were thinking, why they did it, so that we can watch out for them next time and watch for others too.
Exactly. See, that was my issue. So I think in Idaho, that may have been more of a cost thing because the cost of going to trial is much, much bigger. It's not a cost thing in Florida. That's not why they made this decision. But in Idaho, I think you have a smaller community and then you have a smaller office, prosecutor's office there, because even though the case would be moved, it's still being prosecuted by the prosecutors of this small county in Idaho. And here in Miami-Dade County, you got this big county with lots of money. They can afford it. It's just that I think they saw that there were domestic issues. They saw that Courtney Clenney and her boyfriend, the victim, Mr. Obamselli, they did have a volatile history of domestic abuse. Multiple cities, multiple incidents.
Mostly her, though. That was the record. Like the videos and the audio tapes were like her beating up on him, not the other way around.
Right, but remember, there are two people who were parties to it, and one of them is dead, and so you have the only one alive to tell the tale. And I think the prosecutors probably said, when you have some mutual combatant issues, all it takes is one juror, and it's a hung jury. Now, with that said, I didn't have access to all the information. I trust the prosecutors in Miami-Dade County, but I admit I was a little surprised when I saw that she's going to get 6 years.
The big thing for me, just forensically speaking, and I get it, memories fade, evidence goes missing, the heat and energy of the community dims. Okay, that I get. But one thing that doesn't change is science. And that trajectory of the knife from 10 feet away, unless you're, like I said it before, unless you're like an axe thrower in Alaska, you're not going to penetrate 3 inches deep and have that kind of height and trajectory into his chest. So I sort of felt like that was the linchpin. It was the DNA on the knife sheath in Idaho. It was like the real thing that was going to, screw her up no matter what year we prosecuted her.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, science would show you that when you throw a knife from 10 feet away, it doesn't have a downward trajectory like if you just stab someone.
Right.
And the prosecutors probably thought, well, they're going to have their expert. We'll have our expert. And then we'll let the jury decide whether there's reasonable doubt. Battle of experts, which they hate. And they'll have this young woman who will be dressed very conservatively, and she took out all of her hair dye, and she'll look sympathetic, and there's no victim there, and the victim's going to be put on trial. The defense would have put the victim on trial, made him look like an abuser, and he's much bigger than she, and all it takes is one juror. So that's probably what was in their mind.
And I also feel like racism could have played in here. You tell me, is that going to be a factor where they say it's a black man and a white woman, and that's always a recipe for disaster? People are just so unforgiving.
This is the real world, and jurors are real people, and they take their own biases and prejudices into the jury box with them. And all we ask them to do is to put aside everything they know and have heard and just follow the evidence and the law. But it's tough for some jurors who have preconceived ideas to just throw them all away. And so, yeah, I will bet that was a consideration for this office.
Except, of course, if you're OJ, then all bets are off. You get your sweetheart jury in there and you're all good to go.
Well, OJ had the best lawyers money could buy. The prosecutors were, they were,
overreach.
Let's just say suboptimal, right?
Yep.
And the jury, the DA said, I want a jury of his peers. I wanted a jury that was where the community, the largely African-American community, would buy into it. But the jury they got was one that was going to be more sympathetic to OJ, and you saw the result.
Rodney King, as they actually articulated in a documentary long afterwards, like this one was for Rodney King. Like, geez, really? That's what we're doing in a jury box now?
Well, Rodney King was in Simi Valley, a white community, and so the DA put it in that was on the other side where they said, okay, you tried this racially charged case in front of an all-white jury in a white community. And so that's what led the DA to say, no, we're going to try it inside LA, and it would be a very diverse jury. And I just think they got out-lawyered. And when you appeal to racism, when Judge Ito allowed enough of the Mark Furman racism stuff in, that poisoned the jury's minds.
Yeah. Well, unless they were poisoned already, because that one juror who was interviewed for the ESPN documentary said, we were talking amongst ourselves. Ooh, that's the quiet part out loud. That this was the time. This was the one to this was for Rodney. And I thought, oh God, this, I get it. I get the sentiment, but this should be a pristine process. Pollyanna, here I go. Okay, let me ask you this. Courtney Clenney's parents, we got to go back a couple of years on this, but if I remember the evidence right, and forgive me if I'm screwing up a little here, they got Christian's laptop and mucked about with it, like accessed it. And they were charged. And I think it was an obstruction-like charge, if not obstruction. And then that went away because of some sort of privilege issue. But the fact that it went away, doesn't it still kind of factor into all of this? Or is it 100% separate? It has nothing to do with Courtney.
Well, I think the evidence on the laptop could have been helpful, but then the judge ruled the contents were inadmissible, so the whole thing went away. I think that would have been helpful. So you remember back after the homicide, the investigators got the laptop from the apartment. And months later, while she was in custody, the parents apparently tried to remotely or physically access the contents of the laptop. I don't know, was it physically or remotely? They tried to get in there.
I can't remember, but I just remember it was fucking around. It was fuckery. Yeah. That's what I call it, just general fuckery.
Right, and so they slapped the parents with some hacking charges. But the state had to drop it because Judge Cruz ruled that the evidence on there was completely inadmissible. Why? Because it involved attorney-client material and work product material. I mean, the investigators, they got text and email chains between Courtney and her parents and their defense lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So prosecutors used that to build the computer hacking case, and that's where it went awry. Now, if they were able to thread the needle and find a way to get all that stuff, yeah, that could have proven some evidence where perhaps did she say to her parents? Remember, what she says to her parents, that's not privileged. That would have been nice if she had written that. Yeah, I hate this guy, and
it was about time.
It's about time. That type of thing. There you go.
Yeah. Like Corey Richens, who writes a letter in her jail cell asking her brother, to say that, he got the drugs. I mean, it was all, and then, it was all a dream. I was writing it for a book. That stuff was precious.
That really was. She couldn't help herself. I mean, she was trying to choreograph what people would say. So that's the kind of thing that could be used. Consciousness of guilt. Hell yeah.
Yep.
I was thinking of when she gets out of prison, I'll bet you there'll be men not only on her OnlyFans page, but probably will try to date her and proposition her. And I mean, that'd be the last person you should ever want to date, I think, because one day you'll wake up with a machete in your chest.
I agree, but it's weird how they get all this attention anyway. Even Brian Koberger has his pro-burgers who think that he's been railroaded, even though he said, yes, I'm pleading guilty because I am actually guilty. It just, they're, some people's kids. Settlement was right before the plea deal. Do you think that was part orchestrated?
Yes. I think that's why the family was on board, because I think the family sued and got a settlement that they agreed with, and in return, they would also agree not to oppose this criminal side of the plea deal, which is 6 years, and I think that's all interconnected.
Well, I sure hope that the Obumselis knew exactly how much money Courtney had earned and banked, what assets she'd purchased, so that they knew what the whole kit and caboodle was, and that they got the whole damn thing in that settlement, so that she comes out at zero and has to start again, because she should pay. If she's not going to pay in years, she should pay in any other way possible. And speaking of paying, I think about the good people of Florida. I am a resident of Florida now, technically a resident of Florida. I have moved to Florida. I know it's weird. I'm up in Canada right now, but yeah. And I think about, hold the phone. We're really paying for 4 years of a prosecution that ended in she'll get out in 18 months. Do you have any idea what the cost, just ballpark, the cost of that would have been?
I don't know, but if you went to trial, it would have been even more expensive to hire the experts to testify. So, yeah, but Florida, when it comes to criminal justice system, some of it's borne by the defendant. They have a cost of prosecution, but it never covers the real cost of prosecution. And it's just a reality that now, because she's getting out in 2 years, the state will probably save a lot of money not housing her in a prison cell. So you can look at it that way. But yeah, I think I was surprised that there was this plea deal. I think the case against her was strong, but in the end, prosecutors did what they thought was right, and they were in consultation with the victims' families, and that means a lot.
I'm also really interested in the rehab quotient. So often we see this. Somebody commits some kind of a terrible act, and then immediately they're publicly announcing that they're in rehab. And it's like, wait a second, you plunged a knife into someone's chest. What kind of rehab exists for that? But she did it. I guess she was arrested in Hawaii and instantly said she was in rehab. And I think she was in rehab for a very long time, maybe even more than a year. Does that also play a part? Like, do prosecutors look at that and say, okay, so you've started your process of trying to fix the bad in you. Is that part of the deal?
It's so fake. I mean, we see this when I was a prosecutor, we'd see it so often. They probably go to some nice vacation rehab and, but where it works is in the federal system, you do get points, you get credit as a mitigating factor. If you go through rehab, and it's a different system than the state system. This was a state prosecution. So I don't think it mattered for prosecutors. Where it could matter is at sentencing for the judge. I don't think prosecutors, I mean, they've been around a long time. Kathy Fernandez-Rundle has been the prosecutor there since Janet Reno was appointed. Wow. Yeah, when Janet Reno was appointed Attorney General by Bill Clinton, that's when Kathy Fernandez-Rundle ascended to that position.
I think about Elian Gonzalez and the media village and Janet Reno showing her soft side. Do you remember Janet Reno? She just all of a sudden became so motherly about Elian.
I remember that. That like tore the community apart. Yeah. People try to politicize it, and then most people said, "Well, why are we taking this kid away from his father?" I mean, I know the father's a communist, but is that our plan now? We take them away. We purposely, all right, you're a communist, so we're going to take your child away from you.
Yeah, your political affiliations now apparently affect your parenting, but
yeah, right. exactly. Yeah.
So I have a question about what comes next. We talked about the 5-year probation. First of all, if she gets out early, it's parole. So that's what, like, she'd have a year or a year and a half or so on parole, correct? Until probation begins?
No, there's no parole in Florida anymore.
Oh.
Here's a good trivia question. If there is no parole in Florida, parole was outlawed years ago. Now you have to serve 85% of your sentence at minimum. You have to serve at least 85%. And then you can be let out by the Department of Corrections for, if you get credit game time, and she'll get that. But here's a trivia question. If Florida abolished parole, then why does Florida have a parole commission?
Or a parole board. Yeah, that's a good question. Is it just nomenclature that didn't update?
Well, actually, they did change the name to like offender review board, but it's still a parole board. But the reason why Florida still has a parole board, even though they abolished parole, is because it can't be retroactive. It's for all those who were sentenced before Florida abolished parole.
So they're out on parole right now?
Some are, but now since they abolished parole, you can't. So she's not getting out on parole. So what happens is she was given 6 years. She'll get credit for the time served. That's 4 years. And then of the remaining, it's 2 years. She'll have to serve 85% of it, or she could even get out earlier, depending on how she behaves. And then she'll be released. And then she goes on probation for 5 years.
Now, when the probation ends, does that mean free and clear? Go and profit off your crime. Go and sell a book. Like, is all of this just until the final sentence is done?
Well, probation, first off, it means if you step out of line, you go back to jail. It's really strict. But after that, no, you're free to go, but you're still a convicted felon, and so you still can't purchase a firearm. You can't make money off of your crimes. There's certain you can't vote. No, don't have your civil rights.
This will be a lifelong sentence in terms of not being able to profit off the death of Christian.
Correct.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
She could get her civil rights back. She'd have to apply. You're supposed to get it back automatically, but Florida put up some barriers as a way to get around that. So it's still not so easy to get your rights back after you become a convicted felon. And
what is life like for those? I just want to know that there's more punishment coming. Like, what are the 5 years really like? Do you have to meet every week? Do you have to show you're looking for a job? Are you not allowed to drink a drop of alcohol or be within 10 feet of a bar? Of course, no weapons. Like, give me all the shitty aspects of being on probation for 5 years.
Well, you have a probation officer watches over you. You have day-to-day restrictions. They have mandatory reporting. You got to report to that probation officer on a strict schedule. Usually it's like biweekly. And if you fail to show up, that's a problem. That's a immediate violation report.
And do you have to tell them if you're going to go out of state?
You cannot leave your county without explicit written permission from your probation officer or the court. So that means go on vacation or do a photo shoot in Ibiza. You got to get permission. And also probation officers, they have the right to show up at your home unannounced.
Love it.
So yeah, they can walk through the home. They can inspect your living arrangements to make sure you comply with the rules.
Can't have alcohol in that home?
It depends on the rules of the probation, whether alcohol and drugs are banned. You have to also have steady income. And, this is generally, it's part they do financial tracking, and they want you to be a deadbeat.
Okay.
And so they'll scrutinize your bank accounts. Now, there are special conditions. In addition to not having a firearm, it could be like mental health counseling that's imposed. It means you have to go to these counseling sessions. Substance abuse testing, so random screening, right? And then there's no contact orders. You can't go and annoy the victims' families and harass them. So
sounds a lot better than prison, though.
Oh man, It is I mean, there's a reason why no one wants to go to prison. Prison's terrible.
Yeah.
Prison's terrible. But it does set up some traps. Like, she's not going to be able to have the life she had before. She may have a curfew, I'm sure she will.
That's going to be awkward if she's trying to date on Match. Well, no, I can't come to that restaurant. It's over the county line, and I have to be home by midnight.
Right? Yeah, I don't know if they'll fit her with one of those ankle monitoring bracelets. I think probably not, but she'll have to check in. She can't change her address without approval. There's so many things that you can't do. Yeah, definitely. And the drugs, obviously, because that's illegal. But the alcohol will be interesting. I don't know if they will ban all alcohol for her. Was there an allegation? I guess she went to rehab, so it's probably going to be in there, right?
I'll bet it is. I'll have to look through the documents and find out. But I hope it is, because clearly she had a problem, and it led to a lot of chaos in her life, and ultimately led to a horrifying killing and the loss of Christian. Again, I'm still shocked at the grace of the Obumseli family that they are okay with this. I'm not okay with it, and I don't even know Christian. I'm just so sad about a kid like that, and I call him a kid, who's no longer with us because of that little bitch.
It's awful. But I'm not victim blaming, because this is awful. He did choose her, and she was a deeply flawed individual, and they stayed together for a while. And he did not deserve his fate. No. He did not deserve his fate. I just say this as something that the defense would have focused on, that, it wasn't like he was some random person on the street that she stabbed. Right. They were in a toxic relationship. He didn't always act perfectly, and he was going to get dragged through the mud. So you're absolutely right to feel sympathy for him. He got a fate that no one in that situation deserved, because she's the criminal here. She is the killer. At the same time, it's just not as cut and dry as if this were a random act of violence. If it were a random act of violence, she would be on trial.
Yeah, and the defense would have had lots to work with, which is the maddening thing in all of this, because she set that ball rolling by blaming him from the get-go. Oh, Dave Ehrenberg, you helped me to sort of get off the ledge, even though I'm still so frustrated with this, and I hope she has a really shitty life. I really do. I hope she has a shitty, shitty life, and I hope people recognize her for all the wrong reasons now.
Leave you with this, Ashleigh. When I would lose a case, I took solace knowing that we would see that person again. When OJ went free for a murder he committed, 2 murders, we saw him again. He did serve like 9 years plus in prison. And it's rare that people who are bad people just live the rest of their lives perfectly and doing good things and staying out of trouble. Generally, they'll be back in trouble again. I mean, how many times has Kyle Rittenhouse been humiliated and been involved in the system? I mean, people like
OJ. I mean, he served for kidnapping, not for murder, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, if OJ had not committed the murders, he would not have been sentenced to prison for a decade for getting his memorabilia back in that incident in Las Vegas.
I don't know. I'm still a little wishy-washy on that one. I know that judge, I think it was Judge Glass in Nevada, had a real hate on for him, but he did wave a gun at 2 people in a hotel room and tell them to move, and that is the definition of kidnapping. I think you're right. I'm not so sure that any other guy instantly would have been prosecuted like that, but technically, he totally did it. He totally pushed people around against their will and moved them from one place to another, and that's kidnapping.
Yeah. All these other examples, George Zimmerman, there are people out there who, it's not like they go on to live a great life after they have been acquitted of something that is very controversial or very obvious, like OJ. So I have a feeling that Miss Clenney's future is not going to be like an Ashleigh Banfield's future, which is just milk and honey. Except no OnlyFans. Dave Ehrenberg, thank you so much for being here. I love talking to you. Thank you, Ashleigh. My great thanks to Dave Ehrenberg. I love the fact that he can give us the inside scoop on how this stuff happens, because sometimes it just seems just so off and it just doesn't make sense. But listen, walk in their shoes before you try to assume how easy or hard it is to cut these deals. Frustrates me to no end. Koberger still frustrates me to no end, but
shit happens effectively. Thank you so much for being here. And by the way, thank you to all of you who are at the member event. If you didn't get a chance to join us on Sunday for our member Q&A, it was super fun. Thank you so much, everybody. Great questions as well. Join the membership and then you can actually watch it. You can see it. It was really, really great. Super great questions. Great new members. Welcome to all of you. And thank you also to our subscribers. If you haven't yet subscribed, do me a solid and just hit that little subscribe button. It really, really does help. You have no idea how much it helps this platform. It keeps us in business, keeps me here in front of the camera. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I'm Ashleigh Banfield. And remember, the truth isn't just serious, it's drop dead serious.